The letter said I'd inherited 42 million. But what caught my breath wasn't the number. It was the condition. I had 30 days to find out how my father really made it, or I'd lose every cent. My name's Richard Cole, 56 years old, and until last week I thought my old man died broke. He'd been a ghost in my life since I was 17, absent, then dead. At least, that's what I believed. Turns out he'd been alive the whole time, living under another name in Houston, building a fortune no one in the family ever knew about. Oil money, the lawyer said. Investments. But when I asked for details, they shuffled papers, avoided my eyes, and slid me that letter. The inheritance came with a riddle. No open checkbook, no trust fund. Just one sentence from his will, written in his own jagged hand. Richard gets it all if he finds the truth. The truth's buried where I buried myself. I stared at those words until they blurred. My brother died years ago. My mother remarried and washed Dad out of her memory. I'd built my own life. Modest, predictable, free of the shadow he left. Now suddenly $42 million. And a mystery. That night, in my quiet Dallas house, I poured bourbon and Googled the name my father died under. Samuel Cross. What came up wasn't pretty. Shell companies, land deeds in West Texas, court filings sealed by judges whose names rang faint bells, and one headline from 1987 that made my blood run cold. Local man disappears. After oil field explosion, suspected fraud tied to Cross Holdings. The man who vanished was my father. I didn't sleep. I kept picturing his face, gruff, weathered, never quite smiling. He hadn't left us for another family. He'd left because of whatever he'd done in Texas oil fields, something he never wanted me or anyone to know. Now, with 42 million hanging in the balance, I had no choice but to chase the trail he buried. And deep down, I knew money that size never came clean. I didn't tell anyone about the inheritance. Not my ex-wife, not my daughter in college, not even the guys I drink beer with on Fridays. 42 million isn't money, it's a storm. The kind that tears roofs off houses and changes how people look at you. Until I understood what I was walking into, silence felt safer. The letter had a second enclosure, a brass hotel key, stamped room 317, the Driscoll, Austin. No note, no explanation, just the key. I drove down 2 days later. Austin was hot, restless, the streets thick with music and tourists. The Driscoll sat grand and haunted on Brazos Street, its walls holding a century of Texas secrets. I checked in under a different name. Old habit, I didn't want anyone knowing I was there. Room 317 smelled of leather and dust. Heavy drapes shut out the sun, and on the desk sat a manila envelope. My heart hammered as I opened it. Inside were photographs, grainy, black and white shots of oil fields, trucks, men in hard hats, and one photo that froze me. My father, younger but unmistakable, standing beside a row of barrels. On the back of the photo, in his hand, just 2 words, the fire. That night, I barely touched the bed. I sat with the photos spread out before me, piecing together a puzzle I didn't understand. At 2 a.m., the phone in the room rang. I jumped, staring at it until the second ring. I picked up a man's voice, calm, deep. "Richard, took you long enough." My throat tightened. "Who is this?" "You don't know me, but I knew your father. We all did. You're not the first to look for the truth." A pause, like a smile pressed against the line. "Meet me at the Old Cross site, tomorrow at dawn. Alone. If you want the money, you'll want the truth. And if you want the truth, be ready to bleed for it." The line clicked, dead. I sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, the silence thicker than ever. $42 million suddenly felt like the cheapest part of the deal. I left the Driscoll before sunrise, the brass key still in my pocket like a talisman. The streets were quiet, empty, except for delivery trucks and a few joggers. I kept expecting someone to follow me, but the shadows stayed still. The cross site was 2 hours west, near Midland. I drove fast, the highway stretching endless under a pink Texas dawn. I hadn't been out that way in decades, not since my father was still in our lives. Oil country, dry, flat, littered with pump jacks bowing like tired giants. When I pulled up, I knew I was in the right place. A chain-link fence sagged around the perimeter, keep out signs hanging in tatters. The ground was scarred black, wide as a football field, like the earth had been burned hollow. My father had stood here once. Maybe he'd vanished here. A lone pickup idled near the gate. A man leaned against it, tall, broad, wearing a hat pulled low. He didn't wave, just watched me with that stillness you only see in men who know how to wait. "You're Richard," he said as I approached. His voice matched the one on the phone. "Name's Carter. I worked with your dad." "Worked?" My throat was dry. "Or buried him?" Carter didn't flinch. "Depends how you define buried. He walked away from this place, but the fire never did." He pointed toward the scorched pit beyond the fence. "That blaze ran for 3 days. Took men with it. Insurance paid out. More than they should have. That's how Cross Holdings was born." I felt the blood drain from my face. You're saying the money was blood money, he said flat. 42 million built on lies, fraud, and men who burned alive. Your old man ran before they could pin it on him, changed his name, kept building, but the debt never left. I swallowed hard. And now it's mine? Carter's pale eyes fixed on me. If you want the fortune, you inherit the ghosts. And some of them, he said, nodding toward the blackened earth, aren't done screaming. A hot wind swept across the pit, carrying the faintest smell of smoke. And for just a second, I swore I heard voices in it low, angry, and calling my name. I stood at the fence, the scorched earth stretching out like a scar that would never heal. Carter's words rattled inside me. Blood money, ghosts, screaming. It all sounded like a campfire story, except the man telling it wasn't smiling. He lit a cigarette, the flame flickering against the wind. Your father thought he could outrun this, change his name, stack his millions, vanish into Houston high-rises. But fire like that doesn't stay buried. It spreads. Now it's your turn in the blaze. It's not head phrase. I forced myself to ask, why are you here? What do you want from me? Carter exhaled, smoke slow. What I want don't matter. What matters is the men who still want. They've been waiting since '87. They know your daddy's gone, and they know you've got his key. I stiffened. Key? He nodded at my pocket. Brass. Driscoll. He left it for you. The weight of it burned suddenly heavier against my thigh. What's it open? Carter's eyes narrowed. Not a hotel room. That was just the handoff. What you've got is the only key to the lockbox. Your father's lockbox. Safety deposit. Downtown Houston. Everything he kept. Hidden papers. Ledgers. Maybe more. You want answers? That's where they live. I should have felt relief finally. Something concrete. Instead, dread clawed at me. And the others? Carter flicked ash into the dirt. They'll know you're coming. They've been circling for decades. Men don't forget when money and blood run together. The ground seemed to shift under my boots. The pit shimmered in the heat, and for an instant, God help me, I saw shapes in it. Figures, half-formed, arms raised, mouths open in silent screams. I blinked, and they were gone. Carter crushed his cigarette under his heel. You got 30 days. Find the truth, or lose it all. But be warned, Richard, sometimes the truth costs more than the lie ever did. He climbed into his truck, left me there with the smoke and silence. And I knew then, $42 million wasn't an inheritance. It was bait. I drove back toward Houston, with the brass key heavy in my pocket, like it wanted out, like it wanted to drag me straight to whatever my father had hidden. The highway shimmered in the heat, pump jacks nodding their iron heads as if they knew what was coming. By the time I hit the city, the sun was bleeding orange across the skyline. Houston felt louder, faster, meaner than I remembered. Skyscrapers of glass and steel rose where I used to see open lots. I parked 2 blocks from the bank Carter had mentioned, an old granite building that looked out of place among the new towers. Inside, the air was cool, sterile. I walked to the counter, palms sweating. I need access to a safety deposit box. Names, Samuel Cross. The clerk frowned, checked her screen, then asked for ID. My hands shook as I slid her the documents the lawyer had given me. She studied them, then the key, then me. Finally, she nodded and led me into the vault. The door shut behind us with a thud that echoed through my chest. Rows of boxes stretched in every direction, steel gleaming under fluorescent light. She pointed me to a private booth, set the box on the table, and left me alone. I slid the brass key into the lock. It turned with a reluctant click. Inside was no jewelry, no cash, just papers. Dozens of them, bound in folders. I pulled the first one free. Blueprints, oil field schematics, company seals. The next ledgers, numbers scrawled in my father's jagged hand. Amounts, dates, names, payouts that didn't add up. And then photos. Not the kind I'd found at the Driscoll. These were worse. Men burned, faces charred, oil rigs collapsed, bodies covered with tarps. On the back of each photo, initials. C, T, J, H, M. Dead men catalogued like entries in a book. My stomach turned. This wasn't inheritance. It was evidence. The last folder was thinner. Just one letter inside, addressed in my father's hand. To Richard. I unfolded it, and my throat closed. Son, if you're reading this, they'll come for you too. What I stole, I left for you. What I owe, you'll have to pay. The vault lights flickered, and behind me, the heavy door slammed shut. The sound of that vault door slamming echoed like a gunshot. I spun, heart pounding, but the handle was already locked from the outside. Hello? My voice cracked in the silence. Hey, open up! No answer. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the pounding of my own pulse. I forced myself back to the table, staring at the piles of paper. $42 million. Oil fields. Dead men. Debts. And a letter that made my father sound less like a criminal and more like a man trying to pass the noose from his own neck to mine. I read the rest of the note. The words jagged, scrawled like he'd been writing with a shaking hand. It isn't all in the box. Some of it I kept hidden where the fire started. If you want to keep the money, You'll need to finish what I never could. But know this, Richard, truth isn't free. The men who survived will want their due. The lights flickered again. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, outside the vault door. My chest tightened. I shoved the folders back inside, grabbed the letter, and clutched the brass key like it might help me. The footsteps stopped. Metal scraped against metal. A second key sliding into the lock. The door opened an inch. A shadow fell across the threshold. A man stepped in tall, late 50s, hair silver at the temples, suit too sharp for this place. He smiled, as if we were old friends. Richard Cole, he said smoothly. Or should I call you Richard Cross now? Doesn't matter. You and I need a conversation. I swallowed hard. Who the hell are you? He closed the door behind him with a soft click. Name's Halvorsen. I was your father's partner. At least, until the fire. His eyes flicked to the box. I see you've been reading our history. I tightened my grip on the letter. He called it theft, blood money. Halvorsen chuckled low. Your father always had a flair for guilt. Me? I just call it business. And now, son, business belongs to you. He stepped closer, voice softening to a threat. And you're going to finish what he started. Or 42 million won't be enough to bury you. Halvorsen's eyes were pale, sharp, the kind that had seen men burn and never blinked. He leaned against the steel wall, casual as a man waiting for his drink. You've got something I need, Richard. That letter. The ledgers. Proof that ties my name to this mess. Your father was sloppy, sentimental even. But you. His smile sharpened. You're practical. I think we can work together. My hands trembled around the paper. Work together? You torched oil fields, killed men, and built an empire on their bones. Halvorsen didn't flinch. And your father cashed every check, spent every dollar. Don't play the righteous son now. 42 million is already in your blood. My stomach turned. But he wasn't wrong. By law, the money was mine. By blood, so were the ghosts. What do you want? I asked. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. There's a final file missing. Your father kept it out of this box, hid it somewhere near the cross site. It holds names, politicians, bankers, men bigger than me, men who still expect their cut. Without it, none of us are safe. With it, his grin widened. We own the board. I shook my head. And if I don't find it? Halvorsen's eyes hardened. Then you inherit the debt, not the fortune. Those men will come knocking. Trust me, they don't knock twice. The vault air felt thin, metallic. My father's words echoed in my head. What I stole, I left for you. What I owe, you'll have to pay. I slid the letter into my pocket. If I do this, it's on my terms, not yours. Halvorsen chuckled, as if amused by a child pretending to be grown. You'll learn, Richard. In this game, terms are illusions. All that matters is who has the last page of the book. He opened the vault door, gestured for me to follow. 30 days. Find it, or you'll end up buried in the same dirt your father ran from. I walked past him, the brass key heavy in my pocket, my father's words burning in my mind. For the first time, I realized the truth. $42 million wasn't freedom. It was a countdown. I drove aimlessly after leaving the bank, neon bleeding into the windshield. Halvorsen's words replaying in my skull like a loop I couldn't shut off. 30 days. Find it, or you'll end up buried. The brass key lay on the passenger seat, gleaming in the dark like it was laughing at me. Beside it, my father's letter. I'd read the line a dozen times, but it cut deeper each time. Some of it I kept hidden where the fire started. And present, the cross site. The pit Carter showed me. That was where the missing file waited, or where men like Halvorsen believed it did. I should have gone straight home, locked the door, burned everything. Instead, I pulled into a bar off I-10, the kind of place with flickering neon and a jukebox that hadn't been updated since the 90s. I needed noise, bourbon, and time to think. Halfway through my second glass, a woman slid onto the stool beside me. Mid-40s, dark hair cut sharp, eyes that didn't belong in a roadside bar. She ordered tequila neat, knocked it back without blinking, then turned toward me with a smile that wasn't friendly. You're Richard. I stiffened. Do I know you? No. But I knew your father. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. He wasn't the kind of man who left anything clean. Whatever he promised you, it's dirtier than you can imagine. I studied her face. Calm, confident. She didn't look like Halvorsen's people, but she wasn't here by accident. Who are you? I asked. She tapped her empty glass, signaled for another. Call me Evelyn. Your dad trusted me once, enough to tell me where he buried his sins. You think that pit in Midland holds answers? You're half right, but he didn't leave everything there. I frowned. Then where? She smiled, slow and dangerous. In people, men who are still alive, men who want what you've inherited. They'll bleed you dry if you let them. Her drink arrived. She raised it in a mock toast. Here's your choice, Richard. Find the file before Halvorsen does, or watch your 42 million turn into a death sentence. A dude. She tossed back the tequila, set the glass down hard, and slid a folded map across the bar. I unfolded the map under the dim bar light. It was old, creased, stained, the edges yellowed. Midland and the cross site were marked in red ink, circled twice. But there were other marks too, tiny X's scattered across Texas like scars. "What are these?" I asked. Evelyn leaned back, eyes sharp over the rim of her glass. "Safe houses. Drop points. Places your father used when he stopped being Samuel Cole and became Samuel Cross. Every X is a piece of the truth. The one you need." She tapped a spot near Abilene. "That's where he kept the file." "Why tell me?" "Because Halverson thinks he owns you. He doesn't. I want you to finish what your father couldn't, drag this whole rotten empire into the light." Her smile was quick and bitter. "And because if you don't, we all drown." I slid the map into my jacket, my pulse hammering. "What's in that file?" Her gaze flicked toward the door, scanning shadows like she expected someone to step out of them. "Names, not just Halvorsen. Judges, senators, men who've been cashing checks since before you were born. If it surfaces, it doesn't just burn them. It burns Texas." The bar door creaked open, a gust of night air, two men in dark coats stepping inside. They scanned the room with predator patience. Evelyn whispered, "Too late. He sent them." She stood fast, her hand brushing mine. "Get out. Take the map. Don't stop until you reach Abilene." The men spotted us. One moved toward the jukebox, pretending to pick a song. The other leaned on the bar, 2 stools down, ordering whiskey, eyes never leaving me. I threw a crumpled bill on the counter, heart pounding. Evelyn's voice was steel. "Go. I'll slow them down." I wanted to argue, but her look stopped me cold. I walked out into the humid night, map burning against my chest, and the brass key heavy in my pocket. Behind me, through the bar's cracked door, I heard the jukebox spark to life. Then the unmistakable crack of glass shattering, followed by shouting. Evelyn had bought me minutes, maybe hours, but not days. I drove west through the night, headlights cutting a thin path across the black Texas plains. The map Evelyn gave me sat unfolded on the passenger seat, trembling with every bump in the road. My father's red X near Abilene seemed to glow in the dashboard light, pulling me toward it like gravity. I kept checking the rearview mirror. Nothing but empty highway, but I knew better. Men like Halverson didn't just send a pair of heavies to a bar and call it done. They'd keep coming. By dawn, I reached the edge of Abilene dusty streets, faded billboards, the smell of oil and cattle heavy in the air. According to the map, the X marked an old storage yard near the rail line, the kind of place no one noticed until they needed it. The gate hung broken, chain link curling like paper. I parked inside, heart hammering, and followed the map's lines to a rusted warehouse. The door groaned open, echoing through the empty space. Inside, rows of metal lockers stretched into the dark, some open, some locked, most forgotten. I walked slow, the brass key in my pocket, growing warmer with every step, until I saw it. Locker 117. Faded paint, dented door, but intact. The key slid in smooth. For a second, I hesitated, my father's words echoing. "What I owe, you'll have to pay." I turned it. The lock clicked. Inside was a battered briefcase, leather cracked, straps buckled tight. I lifted it out, the weight surprising me. Heavy as stone, heavy as truth. A sound behind me made my stomach drop. Boots on concrete? I spun. Halvorsen stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 men, the barroom shadows come to life. His smile was calm, steady. "Told you, Richard. You don't write the terms, you just turn the pages." He nodded at the briefcase. "Hand it over, and maybe you live long enough to spend your inheritance." The brass key burned in my hand, the briefcase pulling at my arm. $42 million, or the truth. And suddenly, I wasn't sure they were different things. The warehouse air was thick with dust and silence, broken only by the slow scrape of Halvorsen's boots as he stepped closer. His men flanked him, hands hovering near their jackets, where I knew pistols waited. I tightened my grip on the briefcase. My pulse hammered, my father's warning echoing in my skull. "What I stole, I left for you. What I owe, you'll have to pay." "Open it," Halvorsen said, his tone almost casual, like a man asking for a light. "Right here. Let's all see what Daddy Cross was so afraid of." Every nerve in me screamed not to, but if I didn't, they'd take it anyway. Slowly, I set the case on a metal locker, fingers fumbling with the straps. The latches snapped open with sharp clicks that echoed through the warehouse. Inside were files, thick, yellowed folders bound with twine, names written in my father's hand across the cover: senators, oil barons, bankers, even a governor. Each folder swollen with ledgers, receipts, photos, proof of a conspiracy that spanned decades. Halversen's eyes gleamed like a wolf's. "There it is. The fire. You think 42 million makes a man rich? This," he tapped the nearest folder with one finger, "this makes a man untouchable." I slammed the case shut, my voice shaking. "This is evidence. This could bury all of you." His grin widened. "Or crown us kings." His men moved forward. Reflex took over. I snatched the briefcase, clutching it tight, backing toward the far wall. My breath came fast, sharp. I had no weapon, no plan. Just paper that could topple empires. Halvorsen's voice was calm, almost kind. Don't be your father, Richard. He thought he could run with it. Thought guilt was heavier than money. Look where it left him dead in Houston. A coward's grave. Don't make the same mistake. The steel wall pressed cold against my back. The briefcase weighed more with every heartbeat. And then, from outside the warehouse, a voice rang out, steady, female, familiar. Richard, down. Evelyn. The window shattered as gunfire ripped through the air. Glass exploded inward, raining shards across the concrete. I dropped flat, clutching the briefcase to my chest. Halvorsen's men spun, guns flashing in the half-light, shouting curses as bullets tore through the warehouse. Evelyn moved like she'd done this 100 times. From the shadows of the rail yard, her pistol barked sharp, controlled. One of Halvorsen's heavies went down hard. A cry cut short. The other ducked behind a row of lockers, firing blind. Halvorsen didn't flinch. He just stepped back into the doorway, calm as if he'd been expecting this. Still alive, Evelyn, he called out, voice smooth. You've got a bad habit of chasing ghosts. Better than becoming one, she shot back. Another crack of her gun. Another burst of sparks from steel. I crawled behind a row of lockers, the briefcase dragging at my arm, breath ragged. Evelyn's voice cut through the chaos. Richard, get out! The back door! But Halvorsen's men were already shifting, blocking the exit. Bullets shrieked overhead, chewing into rusted metal. I hugged the floor, every nerve screaming. Then Evelyn's hand grabbed my shoulder, yanking me to my feet. She'd slipped inside, eyes blazing, jaw set tight. Move! We sprinted down a narrow aisle, lockers rattling as shots chased us. At the far end, Evelyn kicked open a rusted service door. Night air and the stink of oil fields rushed in. Halvorsen's voice followed, calm as ever. Run all you like, Richard. Every mile just brings you closer to me. Evelyn shoved me through the door, slammed it shut, and we tumbled into the dark rail yard. She didn't stop moving, dragging me toward her truck parked under a dead streetlight. Inside, we hit the road fast, tires spitting gravel. My hands were locked around the briefcase, knuckles white. Evelyn drove like the devil was behind us, because he was. Finally, breathless, I choked out, "Why are you helping me?" Her eyes stayed on the road. Because your father wasn't lying, Richard. That file isn't just blackmail. It's a kill list. Men died to keep it hidden. And if Halvorsen gets it. She slammed the wheel hard, swerving off the road as headlights flared in the rearview. A black SUV was closing fast. Then your inheritance becomes a war. The SUV barreled closer, headlights glaring in the mirror like twin suns. Evelyn floored the gas, the truck roaring as we tore down the empty highway. Wind screamed through the cracked windows, drowning my heartbeat. Glove box, she barked. I yanked it open. Inside a pistol, loaded. My stomach twisted, but I grabbed it, the weight cold and foreign in my hand. Keep them busy, Evelyn growled, swerving hard as the SUV drew alongside. The passenger window rolled down. A man leaned out, gun in hand, muzzle flashing. Bullets punched holes through the truck bed, glass shattering behind us. I ducked low, adrenaline flooding every vein. Shoot, Richard, Evelyn shouted. I raised a pistol, hands trembling, and fired. The shot went wild, sparks spitting off asphalt. The SUV swerved but didn't fall back. Evelyn jerked the wheel, ramming us into them. Metal screamed as the vehicle scraped. I fired again, closer this time. The gunman ducked back inside, buying us seconds. Good, Evelyn muttered, jaw tight. Now hang on. She swerved off the highway onto a dirt road, the truck bouncing hard, dust choking the air. The SUV followed, relentless. My teeth rattled with every bump, but Evelyn's grip never wavered. Where are we going? I yelled. She didn't look at me. A place your father trusted, one of the last X's on that map. The SUV closed again, its bumper slamming into us, jolting the truck sideways. I nearly lost the briefcase, clutching it to my chest, like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Evelyn cursed, yanked the wheel, and we fishtailed toward a cluster of derelict oil rigs silhouetted against the night. Rusted giants, arms frozen mid-bow. Perfect, she hissed. The SUV surged beside us for one final push. Evelyn braked hard, spun the wheel, and we skidded sideways into the skeleton yard of pump jacks. The SUV overshot, slamming into an old rig with a crunch of steel and glass. Flames sparked, licking the night. Breathless, I lowered the pistol. My hands shook so bad I nearly dropped it. Evelyn slowed, weaving us between the rusted towers, finally coasting to a stop. Dust settled heavy around us. She turned to me, eyes fierce. Now do you understand? This isn't inheritance, Richard. It's survival. I hugged the briefcase, heart still racing. Then tell me what's in it, all of it. Evelyn looked away, jaw tight. Enough to end Halvorsen, and enough to destroy you, if you're not careful. We sat in the dark among the rusted oil rigs, the engine ticking as it cooled. The smell of gasoline and dust, heavy in the air. My hands ached from gripping the briefcase too long. Evelyn leaned back in her seat, eyes scanning the horizon. as if expecting Halvorsen himself to rise out of the dirt. "Open it," I said. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. I've been running with this thing pressed to my chest like it's a lifeline, and all it feels like is a coffin. "Show me what's inside." Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. "But once you see, you can't unsee. Understand that, Richard. Your father kept it locked, because the truth isn't a gift. It's a curse." I snapped the latches, my stomach knotted tight. The folders I'd seen in Abilene were only the start. Beneath them lay more audio cassettes labeled with dates, reels of microfilm, and photographs so clear and damning I almost dropped them. Politicians shaking hands with oil barons, envelopes passed, signatures inked under dim lights, and in the center a leather-bound journal, worn, the spine nearly cracked. My father's handwriting scrawled across the first page. "This is the record of Cross Holdings. Every deal, every name, every debt. If I'm gone, Richard, it falls to you. Decide if it lives or dies." I flipped through pages, numbers, coded messages, initials tied to millions in payouts. At the back, a list written clean and stark. 23 names. Men alive. Men powerful. Each name underlined, with one word beside it. Paid. Evelyn's voice was low, almost reverent. "That list is the kill switch. Anyone holding it owns Texas. Owns more than Texas." I stared at her. "So Halvorsen doesn't just want the money. He wants this. Leverage." She nodded. "And if he gets it, you'll be his first signature on the next page." The night air pressed heavy. I slammed the briefcase shut, pulse hammering. "Then we burn it." Evelyn's eyes flashed. "You could. Or you could use it. Become what your father never dared to be." From the distance came the faint wail of sirens. Getting closer, I tightened my grip on the case. My father's words seared in my head. "What I owe, you'll have to pay." And I realized burning it wouldn't erase the debt. It would only set me free long enough for someone else to collect it. The sirens grew louder, bouncing off the rusted skeletons of the pump jacks. Red and blue light flickered on the horizon, chasing shadows across the dirt. Evelyn killed the truck's headlights, her face lit only by the dashboard glow. "They're coming for the case," she said. "Halvorsen won't risk another ambush. This time it's official. Bought cops, maybe feds, doesn't matter. They'll take it, kill us, and rewrite the story before sunrise." My pulse hammered. I hugged the briefcase, feeling its weight like chains on my chest. "So what do I do? Run forever? That's not inheritance, it's a sentence." Evelyn leaned close, her eyes sharp, urgent. "Your father gave you a choice. Pay the debt or spend the rest of your life hunted. But here's the truth, Richard. This case doesn't just buy safety. It buys power. Enough to stand toe-to-toe with men like Halvorsen. Enough to decide whose names matter." The sirens wailed closer now. Dust clouds rose on the horizon, convoys of headlights cutting across the flatland. I opened the briefcase one last time. The files glowed in the flashing red and blue, names and faces staring back like ghosts. My father's journal sat on top, one page marked by his handwriting, shaky but clear. "Richard, whatever you choose it fast. Men die slow, but truth dies quicker." My throat tightened. I looked at Evelyn. "If I burn it, Halvorsen comes anyway." She nodded. "And if you keep it?" I swallowed hard. "Then I become him." For a heartbeat, silence pressed down, heavier than the sirens. Evelyn's hand rested lightly on the wheel, her eyes fixed on me, waiting. I closed the case, the latches snapping shut like gunshots. My decision burned in my chest, hotter than the debt, hotter than the fear. The convoy roared closer, engines rumbling like thunder rolling over the plains. And as I gripped the handle, I realized the truth about $42 million. It wasn't money, it was a throne. And thrones are built on bones.